All right. Good morning once again. Last time we have concluded on, so let me say that we started looking at PHP control structure, right? I think every one of us were in that class. Is there anybody that was not in that class? You were not in that class. Okay, okay. So we started looking at PHP control structure after we completed the journey of data types in PHP. So what I'm going to do is that I want to see how possible we can wrap everything in one recording video because of those that missed the last class. In case they are privileged to access the video, they will be able to get the complete package. That is both the conditional statements and the loop that we intend to look at in this section. So we're supposed to round up this topic with the loops. So let's quickly look at, so I'll be very fast with the aspect of the first arm that we concluded in the last class so that we can get and finish the last aspect of PHP control structure. But before we start, I believe that you must have know that you need to set up your server, right? We should have all set up our server and then also be able to output PHP scripts. So if your system have not been set up for PHP scripting, then you have to sort that out. I think that will be in the first video. We recorded that. So, and I encourage us to go to the YouTube page and subscribe so you can get updates. I know some of us have not subscribed. This is how you miss life opportunity. Your what? What is not working? Eh? So I think if your file is not working, you come for that. I wouldn't want to give part of this class to that. Whether you have to do what? The exam setup, right? How we did it that day. Yes, for every project you have to, but there's a way you can make it in a way that anytime you start your system, it will automatically start. But it's not every time you start your system that you are working on PHP. You understand? That is why I don't want to. But in case you want to do that, you can come after the class. If you know that you want to set it up to be, because I'm not using that one today. I'm not using the server because I have another application installed on this system that will not allow me to use it. So I'm just going to output the information. So I will have just quickly show us. All right, so let's quickly dive into the main business. So we are looking at the introduction to PHP control structure. For those that have been in the class, we can just hover over on it. And then for those that have not joined any of the session, so pay good attention. Now, we define PHP control structure as, we define PHP control structure as the programming statements that control the flow, of, that control what? The flow of execution in the program. I said PHP control structure are programming statements that controls the flow of execution in a program. So what do we mean by flow of execution in a program? When you write a program, there is an order at which the code are to be what? Test run or executed. And that is one of the benefit of the control structure. So it gives your code the order of execution. Are you with me? It tells the coder, okay, display this one first. If this doesn't work, then display the other option. That is the control structure. So just to explain further, I said that they determine which code runs. They determine which code what runs per time, when it's run, and how many times it runs. So you can see how it actually controls the structure now. Number one is what? It determines what? Which code runs, when it runs, and how many times it should run. All these are what we'll be able to implement in programming with the help of the control structure. Let's quickly look at why control structure are important. Do not forget that we talk about this even in JavaScript, right? So I believe with JavaScript knowledge of this topic, some of us should find it difficult. But I don't want to assume, because I know how you guys were performing in JavaScript. If to be a class that I know that they are very optimized, I will have just asked you to go and research. So why control structure are important is that they allow program to make decisions. They allow program to make decisions. They help to repeat tasks automatically. They help to repeat what? Tasks automatically. They control program logic and workflow. So these three important reasons I've given that are enough for us to prioritize this aspect of PHP programming. So let's look at simple examples, simple flow of a program. For example, I want to test with the if. Remember, I told us in that class that the PHP control structure is divided into two parts. We have the conditional statement. That is where we have the if statement. That is where we have the what? The else if statement. That is where we have the else statement. And then under the other arm, which is the loop, that is where we have the for loop, the do loop, the do while loop, and the rest of them, which we wanted to focus on in this section. So let's look at this simple example. Remember that we were told that whenever you want to write PHP scripts, you must write the script in what tag? PHP what tag? And I told us that the PHP tag can be wrapped in what? Any section of your HTML. It can even come after it, and then it can come what? Before it. You can decide to use the whole of the file for your PHP scripting. So in this case, I want to write it in my body, but I need to initiate the PHP what? Tag. And what is the PHP tag? PHP tag is this. That is what? Question mark, and then what? PHP. And then what I normally do is that you can see that it has given me what? The whole thing. You write everything in one line, and then before you what? You expand it, and then go back and write your script. So we talk about PHP variable the other time, right? And I said variables are storage. They are container in PHP, which we use in holding values within the program. And this value will be needed during your programming. So for example, we said that for you to initiate a variable in PHP, you need to accompany it with what? The sign. What is the sign again? $sign, right? You have to start with $sign. So let's say I want to create a variable what? Age. A variable what? Age, just to practicalize the first conditional statement, which is the if, under the PHP control structure. All right. So equals to, so I am assigning an integer. What is an integer again? What is an integer? No idea. Okay, I understand the class very well. So an integer is a whole number, right? An integer is part of data type that falls under what? A whole number. So a number without a decimal point, it is called what? Integer in programming. So I want to store an integer, let's say an integer of 20. An integer of 20. Now remember what I told us, that in PHP, you have to end your code with what? Semi what? Can I get a response from anybody? You need to end your code with what? Each line of code. You need to end it what? Semi what? Colon. Please don't forget all this. Now, we have just created a variable in the PHP tag. Now, we want to echo a statement. We want to echo a statement to check whether this person is an adult. Okay, remove your hand from that cheek. We want to check whether what? Want to check whether this person with this age 20 is an adult. Now, if we want to check that, we are going to use what? If statements. This is where the condition comes from. So what we are trying to apply now is one of the arm of the control structure, which is the what? The if statement. Are you with me? So if statement, like we have established, that is a statement that is used to check for only true value. But when the statement is not true, then it will not output anything. So how do we check for that? So I will say if there is a function, so you have to open the parenthesis bracket. So inside the bracket, you have to specify the expression. The expression is now the condition. What will be compared with the what? The 20 stored in that variable that will determine whether the person is an adult or is not. I hope you are following. Now, I will now say, okay, compare the expression is $age. $age, that is, we want to check if the value in $age is greater than or equals to. So this is two what? Condition. One is what? If it is greater than. The other one is what? If it is equals to. Then 18. So if by the time this if function comes to this variable and check the value that is here and discover that the value is greater than 18. Is that true? Which of them is true? Is it equals to 18 or greater than 18? Greater than what? 18. So one of the statements must be true because this is just like two statements. Then you have to open the calling bracket because this is just like you are grouping your scripts. That is why we refer to whatever you have in the calling bracket as what? Code what? Block. Hope you can still remember. Now, that is where you are to specify the statement because this is conditional statement. So I'm going to say echo because in PHP we are taught that if we want to output our results, we use what? Echo. No longer alert. No longer what? Document.write. This is a different what? Programming language. So echo, if the statement is true, echo is string, which says what? You are an adult. You are what? An adult. And then you must always end your code. Now, let's go to the front end and see what we have there. So if we come to the front end, let's refresh. So you can see, so it outputted what? You, an adult. Now, what about if the statement is not true? Let's try something. Let's say what I have here is 17. Who can tell us what is going to output? What will it output? Speak out. What will it output if we are having 17? Look at the statement now. The statement will now become if age is greater than, right? Or equals to what? 18. So let's compare 18 and 17. Let's check the first one. Is 18 greater than, sorry, is 17 greater than 18? So which means that what? This operator is not correct, right? Okay, let's check the second expression. Is 18 equals to 17? So which means that what? None of the statements are true, right? So let's go to the program and see what do we get if we refresh. What do we get? Nothing, because the if statement can only check one value, and the value is what? True. That is where we now bring in, if I now come here and I say what? S. Are you getting it now? S. So if I come here and I say what? S, echo, S, echo, you are not an adult. So what would the answer be now? Let's go back there and verify. Let's refresh. So you get what? You are not what? So you can see when we said the control structure determine which code run, the order, right? And how many times the code should run. So that is just to qualify that statement. So what happens here? What is the expression of what we just did now? So I've just, settled two of them at the same time now. If and what? If else. They are both conditional what? Statements in PHP. So what happens there, if we are to interpret it, is that here the program decides what display based on what? A condition. That was exactly what happened. So let's look at another example. Let's look at another example. So this example is just like you are checking whether a student passed or not based on the score. So all those applications that calculate all those LMS websites, that's learning what? Management system website, where almost everything about the school is being organized within the website, like all these national open world universities. They do all their result analysis, everything within what? Their website. So a programmer will have programmed that once you get the student's scores, they analyze the student grade. So we can use this same logic to program it. So let me just program another one so I can have series of what? PHP tag for handling different what? PHP tags. So I can come here and say PHP. So let me just pick it from here and then expand it. So what I want to check here now, like I said before, is the score. So I'll start by creating a variable. After this, I'll give us time to implement what I have done so far. So make sure you pay attention. So I'm creating a variable called what? Score. And that is going to hold, for now, let's say 70. And then I want to use if statement to check if the student actually passed what? The exam. So I will say what? Check variable what? Score. Check variable score. If it's greater than or equals to 50, then echo, you pass the exam.
you pass what? The exam. But if it's less than, so I can now say else. So remember, there is something I want to display here now before I move to the next topic. There is what we call what? Else if. This else if is where you have multiple true options. The first option is if the score is greater than or equals to what? So we can say, okay, if the score is greater than or equals to 40. So we are giving room now. We don't want to jump from 50 to what? F9. So we still want to accommodate people that will score 40. So which means that you are creating what? Multiple what? True value before the S comes in. So the S will now become the last option. So that is where you bring what? S if, not just what? S. So S if, what you are going to do here, you are writing this. This is not going to go outside that very column bracket. So you are still inside this because they are all what? True value that must exist within the first code block or calling what? Brackets. So here I will now bring in what? The S what? If. So just like the way you created your if, then you bring in another what? So you say dollar what again? Dollar score greater than or equals to 40. Then you nest it. What should PHP echo? Echo, let's say fair. Can we just say fair? Echo what? Fair. So let's debug. There's a way you can debug your code in PHP. What we are having here right now, for you to have this underline, it means something is wrong, either our syntax. So let's hover on it to check. It says what? View problem. So if I click here now, it will tell me exactly what the problem is. What is the problem? Unexpected what? Elif, which means that what? That place that it is not the right place. So if I do Control X and I bring it here, let's see whether that error has gone. The error has what? Gone. The error has gone. Now, I will now finally say S, ordinary S for the first value. So if any of those two options are not correct, that is when this S value will be what? Called upon. So I will say what? S echo what? You fail. Echo what? You fail. So if we go to the let's refresh. What did you get here? One of the option is correct. That's why I did not get to what? The fail option. By the time you finish checking what you have here, the two options, this one. In fact, this one qualified. That's why I say what? You pass the exam. So even after checking, this one is not correct. It will now what? Check what? It will check this one. If this one is not correct, before it will what? Check this one. But the moment it discovered that one of the two true options is correct, then it outputted it without what? Proceeding. So I'll give us 5 minutes to start from here. Apply this, and then apply this. 5 minutes. Once the 5 minutes lapses, I will cut you off and then proceed.
You can continue. So now we want to look at Now we want to look at another one, which is this time around, we want to look at if, though I have partially explained it, but I just want to recognize it officially again as statements. You see, all these things that we are doing, if you don't know them, you will have issue processing your form data to the back end. That is the reason why you see me, I have to bring it back again to repeat it because I want to make sure that we understand this topic. Yes? Yes, we have. You're supposed to have come to buy video. You did not come. Or you did not ask them. There's a class we passed that place since. I told this class, once you miss class, you come and buy video. There are people that are not here that buy video and they are doing well. Yes, so I can't go back. You missed that class. And either that you buy video or you miss your colleague. If you don't have money, you consult them. So one of them will be able to teach you what we passed that stage. That was very first day. So for now, you should know that it's not your fault. That could not run it because you have not set up your PHP very well. All right, so let's continue. So I just want to officially look at this, how we can combine the if, the else if, and the else, three of them in one code block or in one statement. So let me start by explaining the structure. And then we'll look at the example under it. So the structure is that you have something like this. And then you have condition inside. You have condition inside. And then after this, and then we have this. You're trying to give us the structure of that. We have this. Then inside this, your code comes here. So that is the first one. Then the second one is where you have the else if, and then another condition, just for you to know the structure. Another condition comes in, and then after that, I have the bracket. And then inside here, you have your code. Then remember that we are combining three of the if, else if, and the X itself. So after this, you have your S, which is the last one. You have your S, which is the last one, with its own calling bracket, and then the code comes in here also. Right? So let's look at the example of this. How do we apply three of them in one scripting? So that will take us to the example. So the example I want to give here is equivalent to what we just did now, but just to apply the three of them at once and see the sequence on how to use them. So I'll start by creating my PHP tag, then open it up because I want to wrap all the code inside it. So I'll set my global variable. Remember, I told us something the other time that this variable that is outside the function, what are they called? They are what? Global what? Variable. So let's say what? I have score 1 because I know I've used score before. Let's say I have score 1 and then I'm setting it to what? 85, for example. Then I end it here. Then I can now start testing the statement. So I'll say if what? Score 1, if score 1 is greater than or equals to 70, that is the if statement now, just like the structure I have defined now. So if it is this, then echo grid A. Echo what? Grid A. Then I will also end it there. All right. Then else if We are checking with the same word, dollar score one, else if greater than or equals to 50. Then output echo grade B. Then you also what? End it. So the last one, so I've used if here and I've used what? Else if. Then the last one is else, that is if any of the options are not true. Then echo grade F. Echo what? Grade F. And that brings us to the end of it. So if I go to the front end now, let me comment some of these things off so that we can see just what we have written. Let me comment the whole of this out for now. Okay, I did not take everything. Sorry. So I think, let me get the just clear them to avoid distracting me. Okay, so let's execute just this. So it outputted what? Grade A, because one of the value is what? Correct. So that is for that. So you can just copy it. You can just copy it, though it's like the one we just did now, but you can just copy it. Or let me give us 3 minutes to implement it. I really want us to be conversant with this because we need this when we start PHP MySQL properly for processing our form input. So when I come back, we'll continue with the next conditional statement, which is the switch. And then after that, we look at the loop. So you have just 3 minutes to apply this, and then we'll move on. All right, so at this moment, like I said, we want to look at the very last conditional statements still under PHP control structure. After this, we'll look at the last arm of the PHP control structure, which is loop. So let's quickly look at the switch. Let's look at the switch. Right. Switch statements. Switch statements. So this one, we did not complete this one. We did not cover this one in our previous class. Switch. Yes, no, under the conditional statement, we have if, we have else if, we have else, and then we have switch. You understand? All these are still under the first part of PHP control structure. Are we together? So now let's start by understanding what is switch, right? The switch statement is used to select one of many blocks of code. The switch statement the switch statement is used to select one of many block of code. So it's just like you are having multiple true values. Out of that, you can only what? Choose one. That is what we implement with the switch. So let's quickly look at the syntax. Write down the syntax before we look at the example. So the syntax is that you start by declaring the switch function. Then inside it, you pass in the variable. You pass in the variable, and then you open your calling bracket. So the first one is that you now define the scenarios or the cases. So let's say case, followed by case 1. But now, since we are just defining the structure, the case value 1, then the syntax is this. Then you have column, and then code follows. The code follows here. So here you have the code. And then you now break it. That is, the next line is where you break it. That is the end of the first option. Then you put semicolon. So with this is the first option that is going to what? Access. And then after this, to define the second option, you start again, case value 2. Remember the syntax. After defining the case value, you put what? A column. And then you go down, then code follow. Then after the code, the break follow. Then after the break, then semicolon. You can see. So that is how you continue. Let me do for like 3 cases. Case value 3, then colon, then the code follow, and then break. Now, after checking all the cases, if none of them is correct, then it will automatically what? Call the default. That is if you program it. So you have the default. So that default is only needed where you must have ascertained that there will be no true value in all the value. So you are like giving that default to just like else. That is until none of those cases meet the criteria before this default will be outputted. So now that we understand the code syntax, let's look at the let's quickly look at the example. Let's look at the example. So the first example here is that we want to check for days. So we create a variable. Let me come here. Remember I said example is check, write a PHP code, write, let's say what, PHP code that check for days. So that is the task. So I will start by creating a variable, a global variable, $day, and I will set the first one, the one we are going to check, to Monday. I will set to what? To Monday. Then remember that you have to end it with semicolon. And before that, we need to create our PHP what? PHP tag. We have to put it in PHP tag. So whatever code we are writing, we need to ensure that The code is inside the PHP tag. All right. Now, the next one is I will activate the switch. Like I told us, we activate the switch function. And then we are using the day variable expression. So I will start checking, because what we want to test here is that PHP to tell us which day is saved in the day variable, whether it's Monday or Tuesday. So we have to make available what most of the days. So I will now start here. I'm supplying the day as the expression. And then after that, you open the calling bracket, and then you start defining the case. So like I said, case value is what? What is case value? Case value is day. Case day. Case what? Day. So let's use the first day. Case Monday is a string. So you put it in a string. Case Monday. What's the syntax? Here, colon, right? Then followed by what? Where I said code. If it is Monday, echo what? Starts of work week. Work week. And then remember the syntax, semicolon here. And then before you what? You break. You break, and then you put your. Now, that is the first case. Then the next case is case Tuesday. Case Tuesday. Then remember the syntax, column, then echo what? Second day of the week, for example. Then remember the syntax, and then break follow, because you must always specify where that particular assessment stop. Are you still on the screen, or you are pressing your phone? Now, the next one is that let's assume that we want to go for 3 days check. So the next one is what? Wednesday. Then the syntax, color, echo, third day of the week. Third day of the week. Then break. Now, where any of these day does not match what is saved in what? Day variable. If, for example, now we have not captured anyone to be what? Monday, which is currently stored in what? Day variable. If there is nothing like Monday inside all these cases, then that is when the default. Remember, I talked about what? The default. So you now call what? The default. You now call default, and then you now say default echo no day match. No day what? Match or matches. And then, so that is the syntax that I highlighted here. That is what I have fully what? Implemented. So let's go and check now to see what we have there. I refresh. So it output what? This statement was assigned to which day? Monday, right? Which means that it detected it that what? Yes, there is a case So let's assume that I change this Monday to Thursday. Who can tell us what is going to output? What is it going to output? If I change this place to Thursday, what is it going to output from what? Nothing. It's not going to output anything. No day what? Matches. Good. Because you can see it. So which means that it's communicating. So I'll give us just 5 minutes to apply this code. Make sure you document it. Then when we come back, we look at loop. At least this has given us foundation of this so that when you see me using it in the next class where we will now start looking at PHP MySQL, that is where we'll now start applying this backend language on that website that you have developed, or the form that you have created there. We are going to start learning how we can process whatever the user will type in them to the back-end database. So for those of us that have not set up your database, your PHP you have to make sure that you face it, because the next class we are going to be going to that place to create database. So you can start now, 5 minutes before we proceed, please. All right, so let's quickly look at the last aspect of PHP control structure, which is the loops. Right? You write the loops. So anywhere I stop with this, you go and research the remaining one. The next class, we are going to start implementing PHP in our website projects. So we are looking at what? Looping system. Looping statement rather. Looping statements. Or you can say PHP loops. It's still the same thing. PHP looping statement. So let's look at the definition of what is loop. So loops allow code to run repeatedly while a condition is true. Loop allow code to run repeatedly while a condition is true. While a condition is true. So long the condition is true, the loop function will keep what? Running. Just like the illustration I gave to us when we were in JavaScript. That your operating system, once you on it, it continues to what? To loop until you shut it down. So that shutdown button that you click on, that is the condition that is true to put it off. If not, the system will continue to be what? To be on. So what is let's look at the types of loop. So I'm going to start with while loop. So the first loop we want to look at is what? While loop. While loop. While loop. Eh? What is what? Okay, that is even good. We have done the JavaScript. Just go and research the menu or class close. The same way you know it in JavaScript, go and apply it. Thank you very much for saving me from this stress. That means you have mastered it in JavaScript, right? Eh? How many people? Raise up your hand if you don't want us to waste our time again. You should just adopt the one we did in JavaScript. He said it's the same thing, so that we just, the concepts are the same, but the syntax will not be the same. So let's take it again. So I said I'm starting with the while loop. While loop. An example for while loop. Example for while loop. So let's look at the syntax first. Very important to understand the syntax. So the syntax is that you declare the function while, and then condition follow inside the function parentheses, and then before your code block. And then we can now have our code here. So your code comes in here. So just to put it, just to practicalize it, let's start by opening our PHP tag, PHP tag. PHP tag. And then I also create a global variable, let's say $x. And I'm storing what? 1. Now, just to borrow some skill from JavaScript, I told us that loop iterates, it hovers. And if it iterates, you must specify the initial states where it will always reset and iterate from. In this case, we have set it to be what? 1. So I can now say while, I can now say what? While the $s, while $s is less than or equals to 5, then what should happen? Echo what? Number. Echo number $s. And then break. Remember this, we are borrowing this HTML element. Why we are doing this is that who can guess what the output will be? Where is that man that said that we have done in JavaScript? Please help us to guess what will be the answer? The output, what will be the output? How many numbers will be displayed? How many numbers will be displayed? You know, this is iteration. Instead of you creating variable to store 1, variable to store 2, variable to store 3, you know, like we learned it in JavaScript now. So we can just loop. When we loop, it's like we are saving ourselves from creating variable for each of these values. We set our starting point to be 1. That means what? There's no room for 0. You should not start from 0. The first one should be what? 1, 2. And then you also set your limit. Remember, we talked about that. As we are setting your starting point, you also need to specify what? Your ending point. So what is our ending point here? Less than or what? Equals to 5. So it should iterate across numbers that are less than 5 or exactly what? 5. So how many numbers are we going to get? We are going to get 5. But if I remove that equal sign, it will give us, stop at what? 4. So let's go there and check now. If I run this, you see it continue what? Iterating. No ending, no. Iterating. Why? Because you did not specify that, okay, after returning to 1, then add that 1 before you start again to be 2. Add that 2 to the 1 before you start again to be 3. So something is missing. So this is just like you have crashed the program. So you must come down here and specify your increments. We talk about increment and what? Decrement. Otherwise, to continue what was happening. So I will now say, okay, dollar what? $s plus plus, right? $s what? Plus plus. So which means is this? Look up. What we are saying is that when the iteration start at what? 1 to display 1. And this break is the reason why each of the numbers are taking what? New lines. Hello, are you with me, Oga? Now, when it go for the first time, when it iterates from 1, it will increase by 1. I think I gave this illustration the other time. Let me take it again.
starts by 1. Display 1. Now, when you come back again to start from 1, add that one that you have gotten, then add what? Another 1. Because you say what? S is what? 1, right? S is 1. When you say what? $S increment plus plus, it means that we'll add 1 to the value of S. What is the value of S? 1, right? So if you add 1 to the value of S, it will display what? 2 here, right? Now it will now reset again to what? To that what? X. Then add 1 again to the value of S. That will now give us what? Plus what? 1. That will display what? 3. And then you are asking, is this less than 5? Yes. That means it can still go, right? Now it's okay. Add 1 again, iterate again, add 1 to the 3, and that will display what? 4. Is 4 less than 5 or equals to 5? Is less than 5, right? Which means you can still go. Then add 1 again to 4 and display what? 5. Can it still go? Because once you add 1 to 5, become what? 6. And that is beyond what? What you set here. So now that is the reason why. That is the reason why. Now if you go back and refresh, that is if it allows us to refresh. So let's go and implement it again. Because it's still looping. So let me run it again. So when you get this message, just right click and select what? Open file browser. That is, that other one is still running. So let's see it now. You see that now it stopped exactly what? 5. Because I said loop until increase from 1. Be increasing, be adding 1 from 1 until the number is equals to what? 5. You stop. So you have already, now if you go to that definition, somebody should read that, the definition of loop again. Let's see whether what we did now actually what qualifies it. I said loop is what? Loop allow code to run repeatedly, right? While a condition is what? True. So let's quickly apply. Everybody, let us apply this. Okay, so let's quickly look at for loop. For loop. So I'll just go straight to the example. We have already know the general concept of loop. So for loop, let me create my PHP tag first. PHP tag. So say for expression. So I'll just create my initial point or my initial stage to, let's say, $I. That I represents initialization. That is where it's going to start from. And equals to, we are setting it to what? 1, just like what we did now under while. Then where $S, where $I is less than or equals to. That same thing that we did now is what we want to achieve with what? The for loop, what we did with the while loop now. But we are just trying to look at the differences in their syntax. Where I is less than or equals to 5, then we add it there, the increment $I
$I plus plus, $I plus plus, $I plus plus, and then we can now declare our declaration block to say what, which is echo number, dollar what, $I, $I, $I. Now we want the numbers to be separated in new lines, so we just put the break command there, which is BR as we know it. So let me end the code. So let me comment this one out for now to allow us focus on all. I could just, since we have already written it. So if we run this code now, let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. So you can see the same thing that we achieve with the what? The while loop. Now, what is the difference? Look at it here. What is the difference? It's just number one is the function name is not the same. The other one was what? Why? Why this one is what? For. Here, we capture this variable. Remember that the other one, the variable was declared outside the function, isn't it? Was declared outside the function. If you look at it very well, you see that, let me see. You look at where we use the while loop. The while loop. Where we did the while loop, we set that variable as a global variable. That is what? Variable s equals to 1, which was not in the while. I don't know if anybody is taking note of what I'm saying. If not, that I've deleted, I will have just scroll up and show us. But here, in fact, let me bring back everything so that this is it. You can see that you created the variable outside first. It's not inside the while loop. And then you are now comparing it inside the what? The while loop. But for loop, look at what we are doing here. Both the variable and everything is set inside the what? The for loop. Are you getting it? So just take note of those differences. So let me give us just 3 minutes to apply this for loop. So we will just take the last one, which is for each loop. Let's quickly take that for each loop. You know, we did something like this also. So let's look at brief definition of this, right? The for each loop is used to loop through arrays. Remember, we talked about array even in JavaScript. Array is a data structure that holds multiple value. So if I have collection of items in an array and I want to print them out using the loop, then you are going to use what? For each concept, not just for, no while loop. So I said what? It is used to loop through arrays, which means collection of values in one variable, which means collection of values in one variable, using a single variable to hold multiple value. I said it is used to loop through arrays, which means collection of values in one variable. So let's look at the example. Let me start by creating my PHP tag. This is going to be the last example for this. PHP. So here I will say I'll start with I want to create student lists, name of students, and then use the loop function towards the for each to call them out or to output them. So I'll start by saying variable students, variable students. Since it's an array, we use the square bracket, and then I call the name of the student. Let's say this, the first person is Rita. Use comma to separate Jude. Use comma to separate Prosper. Now I want to print all of this out using PHP for each. Using PHP for each. All right. So now you have to create the list first, the array first. Now I will now use for each. For each. This is where we are using it. For each is a function, open the bracket, and then you supply the name of that variable that you want to loop its values. So $what? Students. As a keyword, as students. The difference is this. Let me finish writing as variable students. As variable what? Students. I will explain it. Let me finish writing so that you can concentrate. Then echo students. Echo students. Dot. The dot is what? Concatenation. And we want to print, we want the name of the student to be displayed in different lines, not on the same line. That is what you want to achieve here. And we are borrowing an element from HTML, which helps us to break it. And then we have to wrap it as a string. And then before we write our... Now, let me explain. Pay attention here. In JavaScript, we use in, right? Here we are using as, which means that for the values in this, iterate over the values here, then store each of them in this. And then you are now outputting whatever value that it must have called and store here. Did you understand it? Those that said we did it in JavaScript, you should understand it now. But did you understand it? I can explain again. Sir, did you understand it? Okay, now let's cool down. We'll get it now. Now look at it here. We are talking about loop, which has to do with iteration. You saw the way that number, the way it calls out 1, it calls out 2, it calls out 3, right? That means that before it was able to display 2, it has to what? Come back to the beginning and add 1 to the previous one to display 3. Come back to the beginning. Now, what we are doing here now is that we are iterating across everything here. So you are saying everything here is stored in what? This, right? So when you say for each, let me increase it so that you can see it very well. So when you say for each of this value, Rita, Jude, are you getting it now? For each of the value in this.
Each time you go over it, you capture 1, right? Then be storing anyone you capture per time, because it's going to loop and capture 1 per time. Anyone you capture from here, store it here and display it on a separate line. Then go back again, loop again. Now this break means, well, once you capture 1, display only that one, then go to the next line before you capture the next name. That is the meaning of what? Concatenating this dot what? Break. Now, what are we outputting? The variable that is holding the capture value. Look at the difference between this student and this. This one does not have S. This one have S. The one that does not have S is the temporary variable that you are creating, that whatever value that will be fetched from here, it should be what? Throwing it there. And then you are printing whatever value that is in here. And the value that will be here per time will be only 1. So that is why when you output it, if you go to the front end now and run it, you see that what? It print out Rita first because you put break. And then when it goes back again, it print out what? Jude. Did you understand it now? So that as is a keyword that is used to what? To display the capture or to pass in the capture value into the variable you have created for it. And then you must, if I print this word now, here now, who can tell us what will happen? If I print students instead of students, what will happen? Let's go there and see the implication. You see what happened? You have an error because that is not the one you have to print. You have to print the variable you created for holding the value that are coming from the main array. So all these concepts that we have explained today, you will see all of them when we start processing our form data, whatever the user will type inside the form. But then we start writing PHP scripts to process them to the back-end database, which we are going to create with the SQL. You will see all using if, else, switch, loop, all these things. That is why we have to take our time to understand. In fact, if you don't understand this topic, you are going to have issue. Particularly the one we use most are the conditional statements. The if, the else, all those ones, there's no way you can avoid it because we are going to say that if a user fill everything on the form, that is condition. What about if he leaves any of the input empty? Tell the person that what? This field must not be what? Empty. That is conditional statement. Then if everything is given to you the way I want it, then submit the value to the back end. That is conditional statement. That's the reason why we are playing with all these things. So if you like yourself, before that next class, go and sit down with this what? Everything. That is why you notice that what we learned in the last class is what I also repeated because I want everything to be in one video. So that those that are not here, that are getting the video, when they get it, they have everything what? Refresh again. And therefore, those of us that are here, you have done revision on what we did last time together with what? The loop aspect. And that brings us to the end of PHP control what? Structure. So just to recap again, PHP control structure has how many branches? How many branches? 2 branches, right? 2 branches, majorly. There is one there that you can research on, which is called what? Jumping. But that one is when you want to break from one point, go and research on it. But majorly we have what? 2 branches. And what are the 2 branches? Conditional statements and what? Loops. So thank you.